This is the ATN International News. First, the headlines. In Chad, ammunition depot explosion causes fatalities. In Yemen, Houthi rebels sink bulk carrier, killing one. In Russia, court sentences American soldier to 3 years in prison. And in Mexico, United States suspends agriculture inspections after assault on staff. And down to Australia, police arrest man after murder of a woman in Queensland. Explosions and fire at a military ammunition depot in Chad's capital caused fatalities and set off frantic efforts to put out the fire and treat the wounded, authorities and witnesses said on Wednesday. The explosion late Tuesday at the depot in N'Djamena lit up the sky as thick smoke covered the clouds in the West African nation. The fire caused human and material damage, President Mahamat Deby Itno posted on Facebook. Peace to the souls of the victims and sincere condolences to the bereaved families and quick recovery to the injured. He did not give the number of fatalities. The cause of the fire was not immediately clear, and the president said an investigation would be conducted. People living in the area panicked, thinking the explosion was an armed attack. Resident Omar Muhammad said the situation was later brought under control with security and health officials deployed in the area. The government spokesman Abdurrahman Kulamala said he urged residents to remain calm, and local media reported the blast started just before midnight and lasted more than 30 minutes as nearby buildings shook and ammunition was thrown from the depot with explosive force. Authorities called on residents to stay out of the area, which was taken over by security forces gathering the scattered artillery shells. Alamin Musa, a resident, called on the government to come to our aid urgently. Many families have recorded deaths and it is sad, Musa said. Chad, a country of nearly 18 million people, has been reeling from political turmoil before and after a controversial presidential election that resulted in Deby Itno's victory. He had led the country as interim president during military rule that followed the death of his father in 2021. The country is seen by the US and France as one of the last remaining stable allies in Africa's volatile Sahel region, south of the Sahara Desert, following military coups in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger in recent years. More than 200 protesters have been arrested in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, in ongoing protests against proposed tax hikes in a finance bill that is due to be tabled in Parliament. Civil society groups said that demonstrations and a planned sit-down outside Parliament buildings will continue despite the arrest of 210 protesters. Nairobi Police Commander Adamson Borgey on Tuesday said that no group has been granted permission to protest in the capital. The right to peaceful protest is guaranteed in the Kenyan Constitution, but organizers are required to notify the police beforehand. Police generally give a go-ahead unless there are security concerns. Police hurled tear gas canisters at hundreds of demonstrators on Tuesday, forcing businesses to temporarily close because of fears over looting. A lawyer, Wanjohi Gandhi, said that he was protesting on behalf of all Kenyans who will be potentially burdened by the tax hikes. I'm requesting the police not to arrest or beat us because we are fighting for their rights as well, he said. Some major tax proposals in the bill were dropped after a Tuesday morning meeting between ruling party lawmakers and President William Ruto. The chairperson of the Finance Committee, Kuria Kimani, said the proposal to introduce a 16% value-added tax on bread had been dropped. Other levies that had prompted debate and have been amended include a proposed 2.5% motor vehicle annual tax that was to be placed on insurance. A proposed tax on goods that degrade the environment will also be amended to apply only to imported goods to encourage local manufacturing. Rights group Amnesty Kenya said that its staff members observing the protests were arrested. We demand the immediate and unconditional release of all arrested protesters and observers, the group said. Kenyan Law Society President Faith Odhiambo said that the police used tear gas on lawyers at a Nairobi police station as they sought to see their clients. A bulk carrier sank days after an attack by Yemenis Houthi rebels believed to have killed one mariner on board, authorities said early Wednesday. The second ship sunk in the rebels' campaign. The sinking of the Tutor in the Red Sea marks what appears to be a new escalation by the Iranian-backed Houthis in their campaign targeting shipping through the vital maritime corridor over the Israeli-Hamas war in the Gaza Strip. The attack comes despite a months-long U.S.-led campaign in the region that has seen the Navy face its most intense maritime fighting since World War II, with near-daily attacks targeting commercial vessels and warships. The Liberian-flagged, Greek-owned and operated Tutor sank in the Red Sea. The British military's United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Center said in a warning to sailors in the region. Military authorities report maritime debris and oil sighted in the last reported location. The UK MTO said the vessel is believed to have sunk. The Houthis, quoting foreign reports in media outlets they control, acknowledged the sinking. The US military did not acknowledge the sinking, nor did it respond to requests for comments. The Tutor came under attack about a week ago by a bomb-carrying Houthi drone boat in the Red Sea. John Kirby, a White House national security spokesperson, said on Monday that the attack killed a crew member who hailed from the Philippines. The Philippines has yet to acknowledge the death, but the man who had been aboard the Tutor has been missing for over a week in the Red Sea, which faces intense summertime heat. The use of a boat loaded with explosives raised the specter of the attack in 2000 on the USS Cole, a suicide assault by Al-Qaeda when the warship was at port in the Yemen city of Aden, killing 17 on board. The Cole is now part of the U.S. Navy's operation in the Red Sea, led by the aircraft carrier USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, to try and halt the Houthi attacks, though the rebels continue their assaults. The Houthis have launched more than 60 attacks targeting specific vessels and fired off other missiles and drones in their campaign that has killed a total of 4 sailors. They've seized 1 vessel and sunk 2 since November. A U.S.-led airstrike campaign has targeted the Houthis since January, with a series of strikes May 30th, killing at least 16 people and wounding 42 others, the rebels say. In March, the Belize-flagged Rubima carried a load of fertilizer, sank in the Red Sea after taking on water for days following a rebel attack. The Houthis have maintained their attacks on targeted ships linked to Israel, the US, or the UK. However, many of the ships they've attacked have little or no connection to the ongoing Israel-Hamas war. The war in Gaza has killed more than 37,000 Palestinians there, while hundreds of others have been killed in Israeli operations in the West Bank. It began after Hamas-led militants attacked Israel on October 7th, killing about 1,200 people and taking about 250 hostages. Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korea leader Kim Jong-un signed a comprehensive strategic partnership during a summit in Pyongyang in a bid to expand their economic and military cooperation and cement a united front against Washington. Putin's visit comes amid growing concerns over an arms arrangement in which North Korea provides Russia with badly needed munitions for Moscow's war in Ukraine in exchange for economic assistance and technology transfers that could enhance the threat posed by Kim's nuclear weapons and missile program. Russian state media said Putin and Kim spoke face-to-face for about 2 hours in a meeting that was originally planned for 1 hour. Speaking before the summit, Putin thanked Kim for North Korea's support in Ukraine and said the two countries would sign an agreement to boost their partnership as both fight against the imperialist, hegemonistic policies of the United States and its satellites against the Russian Federation. North Korea is under heavy UN Security Council sanctions over the weapons program, while Russia also faces sanctions by the United States and its Western partners over its aggression in Ukraine. Russian media said earlier that Kim will host a reception and Putin is expected to leave on Wednesday evening for Vietnam. Before the summit, Putin hailed ties that date to the Soviet army fighting the Japanese military on the Korean peninsula in closing moments of the World War II and Moscow's support for Pyongyang during the Korean War. Kim said relations between Moscow and Pyongyang are now even closer than during Soviet times and called Putin's visit an opportunity to solidify their fiery friendship. Kim vowed his country's full support and solidarity to the Russian government, army, and people in carrying out the special military operation in Ukraine to protect sovereignty, security, interest, and territorial integrity. It wasn't immediately clear what that support might look like. Fresh Malaysian durians will soon make their way to China as two countries signed a slew of trade and economic deals on Wednesday during a visit by Premier Li Qiang to celebrate a half-century of diplomatic relationship. Li held private talks with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim in the government administrative capital of Putrajaya before they met with their delegations. The two leaders witnessed the signing of various pacts, including a new 5-year deal for economic and trade cooperation that officials have said would bolster links between industries in priority sectors like high-level manufacturing and the digital economy. The sides also inked a protocol of measures that will allow Malaysia to export to China fresh durian, a spiky tropical fruit with a strong odor and known for its creamy pulp. Anwar's office said exporting fresh durians to China will open a new market for Malaysia, which began selling durian pulp and paste to China in 2011 and frozen durian whole fruits in 2018. Malaysia's frozen durian export value to China has surged from 170 million ringgit, that is $36 million in 2018, to nearly 1.2 billion ringgit, to $155 million. Last year, it said, Li, the first Chinese premier to visit Malaysia since 2015, flew in for a 3-day visit late Tuesday from Australia. Li, who was given a red carpet welcome, said upon his arrival that the two nations' 50-year anniversary was a new starting point to deepen links and increase exchanges. China is advancing Chinese modernization on all fronts through high-quality development. Malaysia, on its part, is promoting national development under the vision of Malaysia Madani. China is ready to work with Malaysia, Li said in a statement published by the national news agency. Li, China's number 2 leader after President Xi Jinping, last week also became the first Chinese premier to visit New Zealand and then Australia in 7 years. Other agreements signed aimed to promote investment in the digital economy and green development, combat transnational crime, and boost housing and urban development, higher education, people-to-people out exchanges in science and technology, tourism and cultural cooperation, and one office said. Trade with China, Malaysia's #1 trading partner since 2009. Since 2009 made up 18% of Malaysia's global trade, valued at $98.8 billion last year. Trade Minister Zafrul Aziz was quoted as saying by Bemama last week. While trade dominated the talks, Malaysia's Foreign Minister Muhammad Hassan has said the prickly issue of territorial claims in the South China Sea was also likely to be raised. Vietnam, Brunei, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Taiwan all dispute Beijing's claim to almost the entire South China Sea, but unlike the publicized clashes between Philippines and China, Malaysia's government prefers the diplomatic channel and rarely criticizes Beijing, even though Chinese Coast Guard's ships have sailed near Malaysian waters. This is partly to protect economic ties between the trade partners. A bipartisan United States congressional delegation met with the Dalai Lama on Wednesday at his residence in India's Dharamshala, sparking anger from China, which views the exiled spiritual leader of Tibetan Buddhism as a dangerous separatist. This comes as Washington and Beijing have recently restarted talks after several years of turmoil that began after the imposition of tariff on Chinese goods under the Trump administration. Relations deteriorated even more following the COVID-19 pandemic and the rising military tensions in the South China Sea and in the Taiwan Strait. A high-level delegation led by Republican Michael McCain and also including Democratic former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi arrived Tuesday at the hillside town, which the Nobel Peace Prize laureate had made his headquarters since fleeing from Tibet after a failed uprising against Chinese rule in 1959. There, they met with officials from Tibet government in exile, which wants more autonomy for Tibet. Beijing doesn't recognize the exiled administration and hasn't held any dialogue with the representatives of the Dalai Lama since 2010. After meeting the spiritual leader on Wednesday, the 7 U.S. lawmakers addressed hundreds who had gathered at a monastery just outside the 88-year-old Dalai Lama's residence, waving American and Tibetan flags. They told the crowd that a key focus of their witness was to underscore the resolve that they passed by the United States Congress last week and aims to encourage dialogue between the Dalai Lama and Chinese officials with the hopes of finding a peaceful resolution between Tibet and Beijing. The bill should now be sent to the White House to be signed into law by President Joe Biden. The bill is a message to the Chinese government that we have clarity in our thinking and our understanding of this issue. On this issue of freedom of Tibet, Pelosi said, eliciting applause. McCall, the Republican representative, said that the bill reaffirms America's support for the Tibetan right to self-determination. Just this week, our delegation received a letter from Chinese Communist Party warning us not to come here, but we did not let the CCP intimidate us, for we are here today, he said as people cheered. However, the visit and newly passed bill have triggered swift backlash from Beijing. Lin Jin, a spokesperson for the Chinese Foreign Ministry, urged Washington on Tuesday not to support Tibetan independence and said the White House must not sign the bill into law, or China will take resolute measures without elaborating on what these measures may be. It's known by all that the 14th Dalai Lama is not a purely religious figure, but a political exile engaged in anti-China separatist activity under the cloak of religion, Lin added, urging the United States side to have no control with the Dalai group in any form, to have no contact with the Dalai group in any form and stop sending the wrong signal to the world. The Dalai Lama denies being a separatist and says he only advocates substantial autonomy and protection of Tibet's native Buddhist culture. The Tibetan spiritual leader has a history of engaging with U.S. officials, including meeting the American presidents, from Jimmy Carter to Barack Obama. Except for Donald Trump, he has yet to meet Biden since he took office in 2021. The Dalai Lama expected to travel to the U.S. on Thursday for medical treatment on his knees, but it is unclear if he will meet any official while there. Meanwhile, Beijing has repeatedly asked the U.S. not to interfere with Tibetan affairs and has argued that the people of Tibet have enjoyed social stability and enjoy growth under its rule, while India considers Tibet to be part of China, it hosts Tibetan exiles. Kazuko Shiraishi, a leading name in modern Japanese beat poetry, known for her dramatic readings, at times with jazz music, has died. She was 93 years of age. Shiraishi, whom American poet and translator Kenneth Roth dubbed the Allen Ginsberg of Japan, died of heart failure on June the 14th. Shiroksha, a Tokyo publisher of her works, said on Wednesday, Shiraishi shot to fame when she was just 20, freshly graduated from Waseda University in Tokyo with her Tamago no Furumachi, translated as the town that rains eggs, a surrealist portrayal of Japan's wartime destruction. With her landmark long black hair and theatrical delivery, she defied historical stereotypes of the silent, non-assertive Japanese women. Shiraishi courted Joan Miro, Salvador Dali, and John Coltrane among her influences. She was a pioneer in performance poetry, featured at poetry festivals around the world. She read her works with the music of jazz greats like Sam Rivers and Buster Williams, and even a free verse homage to the spirit of Coltrane. Born in Vancouver, Canada, she moved back to Japan as a child while a teen, and she joined an avant-garde poetry group. Shiraishi's personality and poems, which were sometimes bizarre or erotic, defied Japan's historical rule-bound forms of literature like haiku and tanka, instead taking a modern, unexplored path. Rex Roth was instrumental in getting Shiraishi's works translated into English, including collections such as My Floating Mother City in 2009 and Seasons of Sacred Lost in 1978. Over the years, her work has been widely translated into dozens of languages. She was also a translator of literature, including works by Ginsberg. In 1973, Paul Engel invited her to spend a year as a guest writer at the International Writing Program at the University of Iowa, an experience that broadened her artistic scope and helped her gain her poetic voice. In the poems of Kazuko Shiraishi, East and West connect and unite fortuitously, wrote German writer Gunther Kumet. It refutes Kipling's dictum that East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet. In Kazuko Shiraishi's poem, this meeting has already happened. A private funeral among the family has been held while memorial service is being planned. She is survived by her husband, Nobuhiko Hishinuma, and a daughter. You are watching the international news on Atlantic Television Network. We will be back shortly after this break.
dey vote for government, but we no get good governance.
No.
Road so e no dey, light o usai, the infrastructure nko e come turn to be forbidden fruit for the city.
Corruption spoil everything. Hello?
Hello, madam. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Mrs. Ayeni. I am calling from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay. Okay, I've been expecting your call.
Madam, remove this your phone from loudspeaker.
No vex, now my phone be like that. Hello?
Are you there?
I hear, I'm hearing you.
Yes. We saw a copy of your invoice for computers, printers, and laptops.
Welcome back to International News on Atlantic Television Network. And now to the rest of our stories. A court in Russia's far eastern city of Vladivostok on Wednesday sentenced an American soldier arrested earlier this year to 3 years and 9 months in prison on charges of stealing and threats of murder. Russian news reports have said Sergeant Gordon Black, 34 years of age, flew to Vladivostok, a Pacific port city, to see his girlfriend and was arrested after she accused him of stealing from her, according to United States officials and Russian authorities. Russian state news agencies reported from the courtroom in the Pervomaisky District Court in Vladivostok that the judge has also ordered Black to pay 10,000 rubles, about $115, in damages. Prosecutors had asked for Black to be sentenced to 4 years and 8 months in prison. Black's sentencing further complicates United States relations with Russia, which have grown increasingly tense as the fighting in Ukraine continues. Russia is holding a number of Americans in its jails, including corporate security executive Paul Whelan and Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gashkovic. The United States government has designated both men as wrongfully detained and has been trying to negotiate for their release. Others detained include Travis Leak, a musician who has been living in Russia for years and was arrested last year on drug-related charges. Mark Fogel, a teacher in Moscow who was sentenced to 14 years in prison, also on drug charges, and dual nationals Asu Kumasheva and Ksenia Kagzana. The U.S. State Department strongly advised American citizens not to go to Russia. Under Pentagon's policy, service members must get clearance for any international travel from a security manager or commander. The U.S. Army said last month that Black hadn't sought clearance for the international travels and it wasn't authorized by the Defense Department. Given the hostilities in Ukraine and threats to the United States and its military, it is extremely unlikely he would have been granted approval. Black was on leave and in the process of returning to his home base at Fort Kaxazos, Texas, from South Korea, where he had been stationed at Camp Humphreys with the 8th Army. Cynthia Smith, an Army spokesperson, said Black signed out for his move back home, and instead of returning to the continental United States, Black flew to Incheon, Republic of Korea, through China to Vladivostok, Russia, for personal reasons. Black's girlfriend, Alexandra Vashchuk, told reporters earlier this month that it was a simple domestic dispute during which Black became aggressive and attacked her. He then stole money from my wallet and I didn't give him permission to do it, Vashchuk said. United States officials have said that Black, who is married, met his girlfriend in South Korea. According to United States officials, the Russian woman had lived in South Korea and last fall, she and Black got into some type of domestic dispute or altercation. After that, she left South Korea, and it isn't clear if she was forced to leave or what, if any, role South Korean authorities had in the matter. Inflation in the United Kingdom returned to the Bank of England's target rate of 2% for the first time in nearly 3 years, official figures showed on Wednesday, a development that has been seized on by the governing Conservative Party, that its economic plan is working ahead of the July 4th election. The Office for National Statistics said inflation, as measured by the Consumer Prices Index, fell to 2% in the year to May from 2.3% the month before, with food prices providing the biggest downward contribution. Though the decline merely means that prices are rising at a slower rate than they have for the past few years. During one of the cost of living crisis, Conservative Prime Minister Rishi Sunak sought to take credit for the fall and argued it was further evidence that the economy has now turned the corner. However, Rachel Reeves, who will become Treasury Chief if the main opposition Labour Party wins the election, said working people are worse off, with mortgage rates higher than they have been for years and tax at a 70-year high. The fall in inflation follows nearly 3 years of above target inflation. The last time inflation was at 2% was in July 2021, before prices started to shoot up, first as a result of supply chain issues during the coronavirus pandemic, and then by Russia's invasion of Ukraine, which pushed up energy costs. Despite the decline, few economists think that the Bank of England will reduce its main interest rate from 5.25% on Thursday. Some policymakers are still concerned over the scale of price rises in the crucial services sector and the pace of wage increases, which raise the risk of an inflation rebound if interest rates are cut too soon. The consensus in financial markets is that rates will be cut in August. Despite this landmark fall in inflation, concerns over both underlying price pressures and the changing policies in the run-up to general elections means a June interest rate cut is almost certainly off the table, says Sorrentino, Economics Director at the Institute of Chartered Accountants in England and Wales. Though the bank is still independent from government, there's also a general expectation that policymakers will hold the line during an election campaign. The bank Though the bank is independent from government, there is also a general expectation that policymakers will hold the line during an election campaign. The Bank of England, like the US Fed and other central banks, raised interest rates aggressively in the late 2021 from near zero to counter the rapid increase in inflation, which hit a high above 11%. Higher interest rates, which cooled the economy by making it more expensive to borrow, have helped ease inflation, but they've also weighed in on the British economy, which has barely grown since the pandemic rebound. Two employees of the United States Agriculture Department were assaulted and temporarily held by assailants in the Mexican state of Michoacan, prompting the United States government to suspend inspections of avocado and mango shipments, the United States ambassador to Mexico said on Tuesday. Ambassador Ken Salazar said in a statement that the assault occurred while the employees were inspecting avocados in Michoacan, and he said that they were no longer being held. The United States officials had confirmed the pause in inspections Monday, citing security concerns. The employees work for the United States Department of Agriculture's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Services. Because the United States also grows avocados, United States inspectors work in Mexico to ensure exported avocados don't carry diseases that could hurt United States crops. Michoacan is Mexico's biggest exporter of avocados. Michoacan Governor Alfredo Ramirez Bedola told Mexico's Radio Formula that Tuesday that the inspectors have been stopped in a protest by residents of Aranza in western Michoacan in June 14th. He downplayed the situation, suggesting that they were never at risk. He said that they got in touch with the United States Embassy the following day, and the state forces were providing security for the state's avocado producers and packers. I hope we have good news in the coming hours, he said, referring to a potential resumption of inspections. Inspections in other Mexican states were not affected, Salazar said. Mexico's Producers and Packers Association said in a statement on Tuesday that it was working closely with the government officials from Mexico and the United States to resume avocado exports from Michoacan. It said the incident that spurred the suspension was unconnected to the avocado industry. Many avocado growers in Michoacan say that drug gangs threaten them or their family members with kidnapping or death unless they pay protection money, sometimes amounting to thousands of dollars per acre. There have also been reports of organized crime bringing avocados grown in other states, not approved for exports, and trying to get them through the United States inspections. 3 men drowned in Guatemala when 2 of them tried to help another one who had tried to cross an overflowing river as heavy rains caused death and destruction across Central America, authorities said on Tuesday. The 3 fatalities on Monday were the latest in a series of deaths caused by heavy rains in the region in recent days. In neighboring El Salvador, 11 people have died over the past week. Both countries have cancelled school, and El Salvador has opened shelters for the displaced. 2 weather systems, one along Guatemala's Pacific coast and the other in the Gulf of Mexico, have brought saturating rains to southern Mexico and Central America. The storm forming in the Gulf of Mexico is expected to eventually become the season's first named storm and come on shore in northeast Mexico Wednesday. Guatemala's National Coordinator for Disaster Prevention, or CONRED, confirmed that the 3 men drowned in the Pulula River in the municipality of Jalpatagua in southern Guatemala, near the border with El Salvador. Video on Monday night showed a man trying to escape the current in the swollen river, while 2 men jumped in to try to save him. The father of one of the 3 men ran to help them, while he shouted for them to swim against the current. The force of the water was relentless, and the 3 men drowned while onlookers screamed. The rains have also collapsed and destroyed roads and caused flooding. Guatemala President Bernardo Arevalo supervised the repair of the country's main highway towards the Pacific on Tuesday. Heavy rains caused the highway to collapse. El Salvador also continues to deal with the impact of the storms. Interior Minister Juan Carlos Bidagain said that the authorities have prepared 125 shelters nationally, of which 58 were active. They were sheltering more than 1,800 people. In 5 days of intense rains across the country, the director of Salvadoran Civil Protection, Luis Amaya, said that the country had registered 11 deaths, 69 homes with minor damage, and 3 homes with major damage. They had also registered 150 landslides, 300 fallen trees, 233 roads and highways destroyed. A climate forecast from the Environment and Natural Resources Ministry warned that the seasonal rains would continue to impact El Salvador and Central America through the week. The system and conditions favor the abundant increase of humidity in the Pacific towards our territory, maintaining very heavy rains, varying between persistent and intermittent, anticipating greater accumulations of rain in the coastal region and volcanic mountain range, the forecast said. Ecuador on Tuesday announced the suspension of an agreement with China that had waived visas for Chinese citizens traveling to the South American country, citing a worrying increase in irregular migration. Ecuador's foreign ministry said in a statement that the suspension of the bilateral agreement is temporary and would start on July the 1st. It added that the measure was taken after authorities saw that around 50% of Chinese nationals entering Ecuador didn't leave the country through regular routes, nor with the permitted 90 days that they were allowed to stay under the waiver agreement. The development would effectively mean that Ecuador was reinstating visas for Chinese citizens, but the foreign ministry did not provide any details. Since 2023, people from China are among the top nationalities of migrants reaching the United States. Ecuador, one of the only mainland countries in the Americas that offer visa-free entry to Chinese nationals, has become a popular starting point for Chinese migrants who would then trek northward through Central America before entering the United States. The other country is the Republic of Suriname. The Washington-based think tank Niskanen Center, citing official data by the Ecuadorian government, said that the Chinese nationals entered Ecuador 48,381 times in 2023, but only left 24,240 times. The difference of 24,141 was the highest of any nationality, according to Niskanen. Chinese Foreign Ministry said that at a daily briefing on Tuesday that Beijing firmly opposes all forms of human smuggling and that the country's law enforcement has been tough on all kinds of human smuggling groups and individuals engaged in illegal migration. China also has been working with other countries to jointly tackle human smuggling activities, repatriate legal immigrants, and maintain a good order in cross-border travel, Lin said. Lin said that the mutual visa exemption agreement between China and Ecuador first came into effect in 2016. As bilateral relations are stabilizing, Beijing has resumed cooperation with Washington to repatriate Chinese nationals who are in the United States illegally. The number of Chinese immigrants entering the United States rose drastically last year, when United States border officials arrested more than 37,000 Chinese nationals on the southern border, 10 times the number during the previous year. The monthly tally fell in the first 3 months of the year, but it rose to 3,282 arrests in April. Former President Donald Trump, the presumptive Republican presidential nominee, has suggested that the Chinese migrants, mostly men, could be building an army on the United States soil. The Chinese migrants and their advocates have rejected Trump's claim, saying that they have left China for better economic prospects and a freer society after the outbreak of the coronavirus pandemic. And that's the end of international news. And before we go, let's take another look at the major stories. In Chad, ammunition depot explosion causes fatalities. In Yemen, Houthi rebels sink bulk carrier, killing 1. In Russia, court sentences American soldier to 3 years in prison. And in Mexico, United States suspend agricultural inspections after assault on staff. And in Australia, police arrest man after murder of woman in Queensland. I am Raymond Ken Mbata. Thank you for watching, and follow us on our social media platforms. On X, formerly Twitter, Atlantic TV Net. On Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network. And on Instagram, Atlantic TV Network. And watch us live on our website, www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned.